Everyone, my name is Cindy Thompson. I'm both a BCBA and an RBA here in Ontario. I created a tracker to be able to track the BACB CEUs and the CPBAO CPDs in one spreadsheet. I'm going to walk you through it today. First of all, I want to give you the disclaimer that there's no support provided for the tracker. I'm giving this free to help people out. I would like you to let me know if you find a mistake. An important part of this tracker is that the gray cells are calculated. I recommend not changing their value. You are also responsible for making sure that the information that you provide and keep track of is correct. Please refer to the BACB website for their rules on the CEUs and the CPBAO website for their rules on CPDs. There is one, I'm calling it a known issue, but it's the fact that this spreadsheet does not follow the CPBAO's requirements of a maximum of 10 CPDs for a single event. I just haven't included that. I know I will keep track of that, so I do recommend that you note that and be sure to change your requirements accordingly. Let me just walk you through really quickly. There are 3 tabs on this in the spreadsheet. The README tab we just went over. The main tab, which is going to be the meat and potatoes, we'll get there in one moment. And the validation tab, which is for the drop-down menus. I recommend not changing this unless you are aware of the impact. So, let's start with the things that we know best, the BACB CEU hours. What I've done is, first of all, I've put my period beginning and period ending for both the BACB and CPBAO up here. Note that fields with asterisks are used in calculation, so they should have meaningful data in there. At the top, there's a summary of the actual submitted hours. I also have an optional section for planning, which we'll get to in a moment. You do not have to consider this. You could delete it if you want. So let's go over the hours. Currently, as of March 2025, there are 4 ethics CEUs required. Supervision can either be 3 supervision hours if you're a supervisor, or 0. I'm currently not registered as a supervisor, so I have it as 0. There are no required DEI hours currently for the BACB, however, it will be coming, and in addition, we need it for the CPBAO, so I've called it out. Note that when you submit to the BACB currently, they would just be counted under general, and then we have the category for general with a total of 32 hours required per 2-year cycle. I have put notes in many of the cells with the little red square in the corner. Please feel free, I won't go over them today, but they are there to provide extra information and context. So going through the BACB section, which would be this section here. Planned or completed is something I created. It's completely optional. It's just an easy way for me to be able to identify if I've actually completed that CEU or if I'm planning it in the future and I'm trying to plan up here. Type, method, title, all of these categories should be very familiar. They are free text or drop down depending on the field, and you can pick what you want. They are not used in any calculation. These columns over here are used in calculation, so we've got ethics, supervision, DEI, and general. As we had before, the total is grayed out, so please, I recommend not to change that. It is a calculated field. Location is optional. It's if you're in person, you would document that. This is also optional. I'm just tracking whether or not I got the certification. And then I am putting in either a yes or leaving it blank if I've entered the CEU in the BACB portal. This is used in calculations, so I would recommend using it. I'll show you how in a moment. So let's just take a look at what happens whenever we put hours into these sections. So I'm going to use the number 10 here just so it shows up really easily up here. You can see that when I put in 10 ethics CEUs, 10 hours showed up under the ethics CEU. Now let me show you what happens if I don't have a yes entered here. The value would be 0 because I want to track how many I've actually submitted. Now it could be yes, it could be Y, either work. Also note that there are 4 hours required minimum for ethics CEU. So when I had 0 hours submitted, I was under by 4 hours. So the red tells you you don't have enough hours. By putting in 10 hours, I am now over by 6 hours. So all of these calculations are done automatically. If the BACB changes their minimum required hours, you can go ahead and make this update, and it will automatically be reflected in the calculations. So now it works. So if I put 10 for ethics, the 10 comes up. 10 for supervision, the 10 comes up, and you can see the over and under will be calculated. Let's say we have 1 for the DEI. It shows up here, and let's say there was a general one with 5, it will show up here, and a running total of the number of CEUs that you have submitted is kept, and the over and under for the total CEUs. Now I've shown you all on one line. If I delete this and I'll put 1 in the ethics CEU, you can see that it calculates it. I was wondering why it didn't show up. It's because I hadn't put a yes in here. So let me put a yes in here. It will keep a running total of each item. So the way I use it, every event counts as a row, and that is the way that I keep track of my work. Now let's go see how this shows up on the CPBAO side. Now remember that we're going to have 1 ethics, 1 supervision, 1 DEI, and 1 general. For the CPBAO, we have been allowed to count 1 BACB CEU to count as 1 CPBAO hour. So you can see here this will automatically propagate to this side of the spreadsheet. So if I change this ethics CEU to 10, there will be 10 over here. Remember, I am not maxing out at 10 for any one event, so you would have to do that automatically, or manually, excuse me. Now, one thing that you may notice is that the hours haven't been counted up here, and that's because we also need to put in a section. So once we've put in a section, then the hours that are inputted into the spreadsheet will count towards the CPBAO hours. So if I put in B, it will count towards B. If I put in C, it will count towards C. Now, we are allowed to count activities that are both from CPD activities as well as an interaction with peers. And remember, it counts as 2. So here we are putting in both section A and section B. And let me clean this up a little bit. I'm going to put this as 0 hours just to show you what is happening here. I'm going to put 0 and 0 so that the only activity that has an hour is 1 hour from the supervision CEU. Note that from the supervision CEU we have 1 hour, but we actually have an activity from section B and an activity from section A, and so that will actually show up twice now in the spreadsheet. So step 1, put in your activity from your main section, and then if it was a section B activity, you can put in section A and it will be counted up here in our totals. There are times where there are activities that we are going to do that are not going to count towards the BACB CEU, such as doing reading peer-reviewed material. That's where this section over here comes in. So we can pick an activity that, let's say you read an article. You can put in, and it was a general article, let's put in 4 hours for general. Notice the hours don't count up here. What we do need to do is we need to come in here and pick the section that it's related to, and then those hours are going to count towards there. A few more things in this section. Record type. These are the record types that are currently listed on the CPBAO website. The activity description, I usually put synchronous, asynchronous, discussion. I put in enough information so I remember what it was, and I fill in the participation in this activity, enhance my knowledge section with a short summary of the event and what I learned and how I can apply it. I do have detailed notes in a separate spreadsheet. Now note that this whole section here to the right is all grayed out. These are all calculated fields that are used in the calculation of the counted hours up here. So I do recommend you don't change that section. The one other thing I will point out is that there's a column here for, do you want your activity to count towards the CPBAO cycle? I am very fortunate that my BACB research cycle is aligned within 2 weeks from the CPBAO cycle. If that's not the case for you, you may want to have the flexibility of not counting certain hours. So here, note, we had 4 hours right here, and it's showing up here. If I delete this value for yes, then the hour no longer counts in my total. It does count in this optional for planning, which is why I left it. You are welcome to use it or not use it. So that is a very brief overview of the tracker spreadsheet. Please, if you would like to ask questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. And if there's a need for a synchronous session, I can have that with people as well. Thank you very much.